Brian Williams leaves Maryland for Zach Jacksonville State, a group of five, not to be their head coach, but to be their defensive coordinator. When I saw this, I had to like triple read it because I was like, what in the world? Like I thought, oh, they just typoed it. He's going to be their head coach. Now, in fairness, Brian Williams has not been good at Maryland. I think he's been there for a few years now. I forget exactly how long he's been there. I apologize, but he's been there for a few years now. They've not been good. The rumor actually was earlier this offseason that they were going to let go of Brian Williams and hire Mel Tucker to be their defensive coordinator. I just want to say, from a content perspective, that would have been great for us. We would have had a lot of content from Mel Tucker hiring in the Big Ten. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But Zach, from what it sounds like, this was a move that Maryland is not sad to see him go because they wanted him to leave, but unfortunately they couldn't because the administration of Maryland refused, or at least downvoted essentially the hiring of Mel Tucker. So then they were stuck with Brian Williams. Well, Brian Williams essentially, you know, you can guess is saying, well, if they're going to fire me, I might as well take a job someplace else where I'm not going to get fired. At least restart my clock. Yes, it's group of five, formerly an FCS team, like by like a year ago, but still, it's better than being here and possibly getting fired. So, Zach, what do you make of this whole situation with Brian Williams?
Well, I think Brian Williams is smart to get out. And I think the optics look terrible for Maryland. Like it's not that he left for like another Power 5 job. He went to Jacksonville State of all places. Like I don't care how bad Brian Williams is. The optics of I'm going to choose to leave Maryland because you guys aren't competent enough to get the guy you want for whatever reason, and then your choice is I'm going to go down a few notches, which is hard to do when you finish 17th in the Big Ten, by the way. Like it's just, we're seeing it in the chat. Like Philip says, he's running away from Loxley. I it's, I think there's been a lot about Maryland over the past few years where a lot of Maryland fans have gotten on us and other fans have gotten on us and saying, man, what Maryland's accomplished the past few years has been great. It's like, no, they plateaued and they never actually capitalized on their potential. And I think you're seeing essentially where the foundation is, which is they don't know how to run their organization. That's my takeaway from this. Is
Well,
that
you've also seen Maryland have good players come into their program,
right?
and their good players have either not been nearly as good in their program as they go off to be in the NFL, or they get in like they have very good athleticism, and then they get to the NFL Combine and they have good numbers. We'll talk about the NFL Combine here in a minute, but your record should be better than at least last year, 4-8, right? Especially when you're sending more guys to the Combine than half of the other teams in the Big Ten. So like you look at it and it's not a very well run organization. Mike Loxley is a big reason for that. They are, and this is why I just went ahead and gave my pick for Mike Loxley in the rankings because I knew we were going to kind of go at him here in this segment. But like Brian Williams is seeing what everybody else is seeing, right?
Yeah.
It's better for me to go take the same job at a former FCS team in a group of five because I'm probably getting fired here than it is for me to stick around and maybe save my job, which isn't really all that good of a job because yes, we're getting talent, but we're underachieving every single year with that talent. You could argue maybe 1 year. I think 1 year they went what 8-5. They won their bowl game. Maybe that 1 year you could say no, they didn't underachieve that year. Okay. Other than that, Mike Loxley has been pretty much an underachiever his entire time there. And at this point, like if you're Maryland and you care about your football program, you have to move on from Mike Loxley. You have to move on from him. Yeah. He's not good for your program. He's on autopilot, and it's not good. What do you make, Zach? What do you make of the Mel Tucker stuff? Like giving him a second chance in the Big Ten. Like, would you Would you like that hire? Like, do you think that would be good? Like, I don't know. Like, what's just kind of your thoughts on that?
So I think we're both on record saying that we believe in second chances for guys. And like I want to make that clear when I say what I'm about to say. No way should this even be a consideration. No way. The amount of junk over the past few years, what is it, 2 years that the whole Mel Tucker sexual harassment thing came out
Yeah,
two
because it
years
was at the
ago?
beginning of not last season, but the season before that. So yeah, about
Yeah.
2 years.
Like honestly, this is the thing. If Loxley actually went after him, that should cost him his job. Because I mean, people are bringing up Matt Patricia's thing from 29 years ago. Like sexual harassment, sexual assault, and again, we don't know all the details underneath that. We know that there was an appeal, it got denied, yada yada. It's just a mess. And regardless of what actually happened, it's too soon. And honestly, if I'm a recruit or a recruit's dad or a recruit's mom, and I'm looking at the coaching staff and I have a guy who has not rebuilt his image and rebuilt trust at lower levels, why on earth would I send my son to play for someone like that? If there's even smoke. And like again, we don't know all that went down with that, but it's a bonehead decision by Loxley to even consider it. And I think Mel Tucker has to rebuild his image at a lower level before he ever gets back to a Big Ten school.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Mel Tucker was never convicted, was he? It was only an allegation. Is that correct?
It was an allegation
I
that
know he lost his job over
he
it, but I
lost his
think he has
job.
them. I think he has them at court right now because he lost his job over it, but he was never convicted,
I
if
I
I'm
th-
remembering correctly.
I thought I saw that Brenda Tracy, who accused him, was vindicated.
Okay, okay,
Let me
all right.
look it up though, just to make sure.
But I mean, that's not a big thing. I'm trying to, make sure we give proper everything to it. But that, I mean, even it like even with that whole situation, Mel Tucker was not good. Like they're saying it in the chat. Kenneth Walker carried Mel Tucker for 1 year.
Yeah.
Like that's really the fact of the matter of what it is. Even and like that's the thing too. You want to hire him to be your defensive coordinator. Michigan State didn't have good defenses when he was there with Kenneth Walker. That's part of the thing is like, okay, he had a year as the head coach at Colorado, spent his time for a long time as a DB coach, at different places. I think he was at Ohio State for a year or two. But like this, there should be much better qualified individuals for you to go after
Yeah.
than Mel Tucker, especially somebody that's in, a court case and stuff like that right now, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, the entire idea from Mike Loxley is just one more reason where it's like, dude, you obviously have no idea what you're doing hiring this program here. And if you are at the point where you're trying to hire Mel Tucker to be your defensive coordinator, like how many guys are you reaching out to that like I don't want that job?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
because they see the same thing that we do. It's hard for teams when you go 4-8 to fire somebody and hire somebody else,
Yep.
especially somebody who's a good name and who can come in and actually do something well. Because people with good names that could do something well aren't going to go there. They're going to go to better programs. They're going to go to
Yeah.
a program that actually has some competence and can win. But I mean, Maryland fans might be mad at us by saying this kind of stuff, and I get it, but it's kind of similar to what we said with the Minnesota stuff, where it's like we're not saying this because we hate Maryland. We're saying this because we want Maryland to be good because they're in a recruiting hotbed, and they could actually be good if they had a good coach running their program. I don't know if they're like, playoffs good. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, they got a lot of talent over there, but
Yeah.
not 4-8 in the Big Ten bad. Like that, they wouldn't be that bad with a good coach.
No, well, and I think I think people forget, like, we're evaluating the Big Ten, and I think we see Maryland, and I think we've seen Rutgers a little bit to this too. Is like, if you invest well in those programs, yes, historically they have not been great, but there's no reason why they couldn't be. They're both in huge city markets, good recruiting. They can probably amass a lot of money pretty quickly. The problem is, I mean, they're starting from behind, but if you get the right guy in there, you can build a program. Greg Schiano is a really good example of that. Like, yes, they haven't been great. And like in their what was supposed to be their best season ever, they went 7-6.
No, but he's a top 3 coach in the program history.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, Rutgers, and part of Rutgers is much worse historically than
Right.
Maryland. But just to go back, so the whole allegations, it seems like there's been a back and forth in court. Like there's a defamation case, certain charges were dropped. So it seems like there's some issues both in both ways. So it's,
well, if
that
that's
being-
still going on, that's one more reason why you don't hire the guy. Let the guy get his, get everything in shape.
Yeah.
I can promise you Mel Tucker's not hurting for money.
No.
He signed that huge deal with Michigan State.
No.
Which I guess he's not getting paid that if they hired him with cause and everything. But
Yeah, I think
still, like,
the appeal was denied, so I don't think but he still made money on that.
he still
contract.
made a lot of money was there. Yeah.
Yeah.